Good afternoon. How have you been?
Intense. Yeah, busy,
Yeah.
busy, busy. Yeah, trying to get this stuff together for the expo event, and it's all coming together, but real slower than I'd like, and in different ways than I anticipated. So,
Always does.
yes, it does. Yeah,
There's Annie.
Good.
there she is.
Hey,
Hey,
good to see you both.
yes. Did
Yeah,
you do your homework?
I wrote it in the
Okay.
um but I forget but so it's online. I don't know where I wrote it on my desk. so I so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to access it right now.
Was it your phrase on reciprocity?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I can probably find that.
Reciprocal exchange is nature's way of regeneration. But that's not the that's not the that's I mean that's true,
Yes, it is.
and I did write that, but I'm not sure it's the response to what I was to make up. Or
Well, it is sort of. So Robert Ani has problems with the statement that all actions create the conditions that support life.
daggone right, that
And
all
so,
actions.
yeah.
No,
I read that. I did my at least some of my homework. I didn't watch the entire videos, but I did read the whole transcript or quasi
The
transcript.
summary. Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
some mean person pouring acid on something is not
Well,
going.
but that, yeah, see, you're constantly going back to what humans do. And that statement is what life does.
It doesn't. That who would know that?
It's just, I mean, it's like saying things fall from the ground, fall from the sky. Once you say it, you realize that that's true. And I feel the same way about that. The only way that that nature could exist as we know it is because all the living things that compose everything we see, all the consciousness that's out there is doing that.
I can
And
see what Annie's getting at, though. That's a hard sell because by implication, you are pinning blame on human beings. And
well, it's our choice.
beings will
It's
not.
not blame. It's not blame. It's a responsibility that we've chosen or not chosen, and we've not chosen. So that
We
it's
have
not
not
blame.
Yep.
It's responsibility that we've not taken.
But
And
most people react as if it's blaming. Case in
Oh,
point,
well, yeah. I mean, there's all that stuff. Sure. Yeah, yeah. That doesn't, for
you,
me, that doesn't deny the truth of it at all.
you can never mention to a person who either has depression or cancer, that the actions of their living has led to the situation where their
They
body
resist it.
creating certain,
Absolutely. And they see it as blame instead of
and see it
responsibility.
as blame.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
totally
Yep.
stopped a number of conversations I've been in. I understand
That
that. Yes.
doesn't deny the truth of it, though.
No,
blame and responsibility are two different things. Action,
Absolutely.
action is what we're talking about here.
Right. And action is a choice.
And all actions do not.
For the rest of the world, they do. Not for humans. That's absolutely true. I've never disagreed with that. But what I do disagree with is assuming that that's truth, or that that's as so important that you have to accept it as a reality, because it's not. I mean,
Well,
because we make bad decisions doesn't mean we go around saying, oh, well, humans make bad decisions. Therefore, humans can't make good decisions. Bull.
I really honestly do not get where you're coming from and what you are saying. What is your point? What is
All life loves life. All life works to make sure life continues. Humans do
that's
not.
a very different statement.
It's not. I don't see it as any different at all. And I just got off an absolutely marvelous call on water. And the lady, one of the ladies' names is Veda Austin. Write this down, VedaAustin.com. VedaAustin.com.
BEDA, say it again.
V as in Victor, EDAAustin.com.
Okay,
And look at her videos on YouTube. So if you know anything about Miyamoto,
yes.
okay, she has taken his
Oh,
work to a new
no.
level.
I'm a moto. I don't know a woman.
He's not a woman. Miyamoto is a man.
Right. Yes, I know him. I know his work with water.
Right. And she has taken his work to a new level.
What's the point here? What are we just?
The point is that water is life. Water is prescient. Water has intelligence, and she has proved it through her work. She has photographs that prove this.
What does that have to do with all action?
Because all life, water reflects what it sees. And it is constant.
You're mixing stuff now.
No, water is consciousness, and it reflects on itself all the time. And so it reflects back what it sees. When we're talking about all life creates the conditions that support life.
That is not the statement that you made. You said all actions.
What acts?
Humans act, and all human actions do not support life.
Anything else act in your world?
Everything.
Yeah.
But all actions includes humans. Thus,
and we have that potential, but we don't use it. That is the whole point. That's why that tension is there, because you should recognize that tension, that yes, we don't, and then begin to make the change so that we do. That's why that tension is there. Everyone acts that way. All other life acts that way. We need to do that too.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that.
I know, and I don't understand.
It's only one statement that you made that is erroneous that I spoke to. I mean, the rest of the conversation, yeah.
And yes, and I don't understand why that's so difficult.
You said all actions.
I know, and I don't understand why that's so difficult for you.
That includes humans, and all actions
That's right.
that human does are not.
No. When you notice that that's not true, that's important to notice that it's not true.
And that's why I said it's not true.
But it should be.
That's a whole different framework.
No, it's not a different framework. That's the whole point of looking at the patterns of nature. I mean, you can look at any of them, and we don't do a lot of them, or we do them intermittently.
We need to be careful about statements that we make that defining the framework or something. I mean, because I'm not gonna go along with all actions support life.
They create the conditions that support life.
I do not agree with that.
But it is true.
Okay,
We do not. That is also true.
we're not
And
getting,
you are hanging on to the fact that we don't. And I am hanging on to the fact that we can.
can is a different word than do.
Well, then we need to do. It needs to move from just we could do it to we do it. And it is happening in places. I mean, I think that's a lot of, that's what we call a spiritual journey. That's a lot of what most people's life is about, trying to do, to feel right in our relationship to life and to figuring out what that is. And I think that phrase just nails it. That is what that experience should be.
I'm
That
willing to let this go.
So where does this phrase turn up? What's the context?
Catherine said it.
That's
Well, it actually came from Jeannie Benyus. That was her understanding of how nature works with her work. And
but
you
how
wanna,
are you using it? Is it in one of your, you
yeah,
know,
it's one of the
diagrams,
principles.
chart-
Yeah, yeah,
Statement.
it's the key principle. So with the three value systems, the first value system, the key principle is loyalty. The second one is honesty. And with this one, it's all actions create the conditions that support life. It is such a reminder for me of the impact of our actions on everything else,
well,
whether it creates conditions for the exuberance of life to manifest or whether it dampens that.
I mean, if it's in that series of terms, statements, then it does make sense because obviously all humans aren't honest.
Yes.
So we have some very prominent examples going on just today down in a courtroom in New York. But given that, you know, that all action produce, you know, results that will support life, that is in that same upward looking, you know, category that, you know, if everyone were honest, so forth, if everyone, you know, if all of everyone's actions fit. So to me, it does fit within that context. And it might be difficult to misunderstand it because all human beings are not honest and all human beings are not filled with love. You know, love, understanding, honor, whatever term you wish to use.
And I do think that all our actions do create the conditions of life, whether it supports life or not.
Yeah, but you said support.
Yeah.
That's right, because that's what we want to do. That's what we need to be more attentive to than we are.
Like that statement, because that's true.
Yeah.
But all human actions do not support life.
But they should.
Yes. We're in agreement.
It's an affirmation, Ani.
There's a difference between making a statement that is not correct.
What's an affirmation?
That all actions support life.
Yeah.
It's not true.
It's an affirmation.
There are a lot of affirmations that are not true.
Well, what is an affirmation?
It is a statement of truth according to the person who's making the statement.
And it's a desired truth. It's not necessarily a truth that they live in now.
We're going round in circles here. Can we, you know?
Well, just as an aside, I just Veda Austin. I just go to YouTube and type in Veda Austin,
Yeah.
and it looks like some very intriguing videos.
Oh, she is what she's shown is so amazing, so amazing.
2 hours worth for one of them, and then others are just a few minutes giving a sense of it. But
what's your message?
yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yes, yes.
Cool.
Astonishing. What blew me away She uses a freezing technique, but she uses the refrigerators. It's not high tech. You don't need a microscope or any of that. And she took a petri dish of water and she put a sunflower seed in it, or under it. It's not in the water, it's underneath the water. And then she froze the water, and the picture she got back was a sunflower.
Oh, wow.
A sunflower. It recognized the potential in the seed, and that's what it showed. That is awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That is awesome. That is
yeah.
awesome.
There's a couple of them here. One
Yes.
showing the face of a young woman, a photograph. And
Yeah.
then the other one, the frozen water reflecting that same essence in
A pregnant woman. They got a picture of the embryo.
Yeah.
And then the woman went to her doctor and got an ultrasound, and it looks exactly like what the water showed.
Wow.
She put her finger in the water and got a picture back of her finger with a notch in the nail. 3 days later, she put a notch in her nail. So the water knew that before it happened.
Heavy
I mean,
duty.
these are amazing things.
Yeah.
These are amazing things.
Yes.
So what does that show you, Catherine? How do you see that as being, it's remarkable, it's wonderful, but how do you see that playing into the work we're doing, the type of conversations we have?
What I want to say is that water is the first manifestation of consciousness.
Nice.
That is where consciousness resides on the planet, and it is in constant dialogue with other life here. It shows us who we are. It shows us who we can be.
Would you say that water is holder of consciousness?
We are all holders of consciousness. Everything that's manifested is sentient in some way.
We're 70% water.
Yeah, or more. Yeah. And what that means from this perspective for me is that because we are so much water, we need to pay attention to the images we put into the water of our body, because it does determine so much of our experience, and that we can change our experience by changing the images we put into the water of our body through our mind, what we're thinking of. That's why gratitude and appreciation are so powerful, because it changes the vibration of the water in our body.
For sure.
And there's all sorts of techniques to do that. What seemed to be very prevalent in the talk today is the infinity symbol, the figure 8, and that just refreshes everything. And it really helps to keep the water in a balanced state instead of getting unbalanced with all the other impacts that our culture puts on it right now. So there's that, and there's a thing called structured water. One of the people on it was Patrick Durkin, and he's created a tool to help water stay structured at its highest, and that's helpful. I mean, there was a Kim Kerrigan, one of the women on the conference in the chat, talked about, she's a long distance swimmer, and she was in a life-threatening situation in the ocean, and the water told her how to get out of it. I mean, just wonderful stories.
I believe that. It's
wonderful stories.
And I would also be comfortable with saying intuition. Not necessarily that that water is the only actor, the only environment that can communicate guidance.
Well, that's how we would hear the water, isn't it? Through our intuition.
Yeah.
One of the things Patrick said that was so beautiful is that the molecules of water in our body is the way we communicate with the molecules of water in the universe. It's through the water.
Yeah, probably.
That was such a lovely, yeah, just a lovely phrase.
Yeah. Yeah, it puts things in a sacred dimension.
And it takes it from being in the air to being embodied
Uh-huh.
in a very different way. I mean, we
That,
think of spirit as we out here instead of in here. And we talk about it being in here, but we still keep it airy instead of understanding that the water is the carrier of that.
yeah,
Just really interesting.
I like that.
Yeah.
And in a lot of traditions, they speak of the water of truth.
And of life.
Hmm.
And there's an anointing.
Of truth, the truth of life, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Really lovely.
So what else do we want to deep dive about?
Oh,
Well,
why do you think we're so interested in consciousness?
it determines our experience. Or it is a determiner of our experience. What I'm thinking about, what I'm conscious of, is all over me. I mean, it's like it's doing a thing with me.
And it's separate from you.
it is not my personhood or my body or right. It's I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to find another statement that says what you just affirmed.
You know what water said when she asked it what it is? Because the water will do words and stuff. I mean, the water will do words. So she, what did she do? Oh, she said to a petri dish of water, Yahweh, froze it, and got back this picture. And she noticed that there was a scribbling up in the top of the petri dish. And so she blew that up and she put it on her Facebook page. And she said, "What is this?" And people wrote back and said, "It's the Yiddish word Yahweh. That's how we write it in Yiddish."
Cool.
So the water had actually put that word there. So she asked it who she was, and it gave her her initials in the way she wrote them. And then she asked it who it was. And it said, "I am."
Whoa, heavy
So
duty.
it relates very, I mean, it's wonderful to have such a physical
yes.
representation, but
Yes.
it's something I've believed for years now, is that consciousness is the connective tissue. And it's a field that, what should I say, supersedes all of physical matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's a field that, is imbued, imbues every article of matter, or, you know, you could say every article of consciousness within any being, like a human being. It is the conveyor of the power of love, which powers the universe, according to so many different traditions. You know, it's as important to the universe as life is to us, you know, as beings. Yeah, I mean, I really see it as a central factor. And of course, it does not show up in all of our scientific inquiry because it can't be pinned down. The only place it sort of shows up, there's still a lot of debate, is the idea that observation and choice is required for us to be able to determine wave or particle manifestation in the universe. When you pin it, when you weed it down to, individual particles, how we see them is based on consciousness. Conscious interaction. Yeah.
And they see each other
Yeah.
through conscious interaction. I
Yeah,
mean, when you change
they
one, the other one
That's
changes.
shown too.
Yeah.
Entanglement,
Yeah.
which entanglement pays no homage to space and time.
Right.
It simply is.
That's lovely. It's a lovely phrase, Robert. Lovely. Lovely.
Say it again.
Entanglement pays no homage to space and time. The entanglement meaning of particles.
Entanglement gives, say it again.
It pays no homage to space and time. Evidently, evidently this has been shown in many, maybe not many, but in experiments that have been received.
Well, and they've now proven that you can send those particles through and then change something in the back, and it will come back and honor that change.
Mm-hmm.
So you can change the past.
What emerges is a statement that I love that keeps popping into me. Everything is the same thing. Everything is the same thing.
So all actions do create the conditions that support life.
It doesn't go through my body right. That statement does just not compute in my living system.
Through all my spiritual training, a guiding, you might say, maxim throughout that, or a concern, is that human beings have it wrong. I mean, that's the basis of the fall, the various mythologies, and but in fact, you can show very clearly when you look at any issue developing in our current societies, and you just start nailing down, reducing it backward to what caused it to start, whether it be World War III or simply an argument between two people. It all goes back to a self-centered, action.
Well, from everything I've read and considered, we are the youngest species on Earth.
Yeah.
And which means we're immature. Nature
Except that
let me finish. Nature evolves, and we are nature. We're evolving. Because I've been thinking about conscious evolution and wanting to make a contribution to the conscious evolution of humanity, because it's all in process. We're evolving.
So one of the things that we tend to do is make all humans like us, and that's actually not true. So from my understanding of the Christian Genesis story, and from my understanding of history and how I see what's happening on the planet now, it seems to me there are some humans who have stayed in the garden. They never left. They kept their commitment to the earth and to other life and have lived that way. So we can't say that all humans are like that, because that's not true. But Western humans have the lineage, are part of the lineage where, in Robert's terms, they became self-serving. They decided to pay attention to their own needs and to forget that of others. They could take care of themselves, sort of thing. And that's the crux. I mean, everything seems to change, to trace back to that, because at some point we stop paying attention to what others do, or caring about it, or supporting it, or being in any way involved in it. We just do our thing and they do their thing. And, what happens, happens. And that attitude is the basis for all our problems. That's cool. What's gotten us here. And that's the path out
And there's a very strong and powerful relationship between separation, feeling like a separate being,
yeah,
and being separate from that stream of consciousness, which is unified throughout the universe.
Yep.
So, it's a strong relationship that is actually, I think, at the basis of all this, awakening, talk of awakening, and the talk of, preparing oneself in consciousness, to face what life really is, in all of its forms. And some people attribute, will use the word God as their focus of attention, and others will use life, or others will use space entities, ascended masters. And I laugh at that. And yet I've met so many people who have gone through huge training protocols, patterns, and truly are getting it, are truly, beginning to understand their place in life. So I don't care what they profess, as that ultimate being, that
right.
ground of being. If it works,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
use it. It's
Yeah.
obviously coming from the same place.
Yes.
Yeah, but I can keep coming back to Waters, I am. Is that something that a lot of very enlightened individuals have also said? Just I am. As opposed to consciousness being something else than I. Something else than me. It's not me, it's something else.
I'm not sure I got that.
Well, it's claiming the identity with everything, as opposed to still being outside of everything else and claiming that identity. And that seems to be a big piece of the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And you
mean,
still chop wood and carry water, but your understanding is different.
seeing that, you're a part of I cannot be, what should I say, disseminated until there's a lot of me's. It's just one thing. It's the union,
Yeah.
oneness, Ani, that you referred to.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I say I am, I mean, it's just a whole ball of wax.
Yeah.
how true it is when you say, I feel like a hamburger. I am a hamburger. That's something we used to joke about as kids.
You're stretching it, Robert.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's magnificent. We're just conscious of something that is magnificent, and I'm so grateful because it's regenerative to
Yep.
to be aware of creation and how it came about, or that I am it, or we are. You know, it's wonderful to just contemplate it, play with it, reflect on it, bow to it.
I was thinking of water today in terms of my current work with soil and stuff, and how and just wondering if part of our problem is the dryness of the earth, because it's another separation from water.
Yeah.
That as the soil is holding water, it holds that space for us in a bigger way than dry soil can, dry dirt. So it's important to keep the soil moist in so many ways, that there's a spiritual aspect to it as well.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
That's a new thought.
Yep.
It feels good.
Yeah, it does. It does. I don't know how much I can talk about that.
Well, now I don't want to go back to Ani's staunch, defense of her insight into the first comment about, action. But water is both supportive of life in its pure form, but in the waters of the oceans, I would say it's not supportive of some life. Now it is, of course, supportive of life that lives in it, that has adapted to the the mineral content, the saltiness. And there will always be plenty of salt water on the planet. What we're really missing in our atmosphere now is an abundance in some places of fresh water.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just a whole lot of implications in seeing how patterns are shifting around the world because of the actions of humankind.
Right.
But, the basis of life is going to remain the water, and that water cycle is still going to remain. It's just that Dubai will get 6 inches of rain in 24 hours, which has never had before
Yeah. Yeah.
in anyone's history.
Yeah.
But
They just did that, right?
right. And
Yep.
yet, in parts of our country, there are now developing areas of real drought each year.
For decades.
And they have been very life supporting, fertile areas. Central Valley of California being one of them, although that shifted. I mean, it was going in a bad, dangerous direction, but that has shifted. It's just an interplay. I mean, at one time, the Sahara Desert, there's every indication that it was covered with
Right. Life.
forests, greenery, plains,
Hmm.
grasslands.
Hmm.
And of course, it's a deathly desert now. So water is essential, and watching its lacks and or shifts, is it just, brings us into a whole different consideration of how life is under constant flux on the surface of the earth.
That for me is where the biotic pump becomes so important.
Yeah.
To understand it and to be able to support all of its aspects.
Yeah.
I was thinking about permaculture this morning because permaculture is a really big part. I mean, they talk about slowing water on the land. They talk about how to make it sink, how to keep it there. They've proved that water gets stored in the soil and will bring back. But the planting that they've done has been really focused on food more than anything. And while that's important, it doesn't evapotranspire in the same way. So there's the forest piece, the Miyawaki forest piece, I think is really essential because that also brings back biodiversity in a way that planting food does not. So it really completes that cycle in a very complete way. So it's just, yeah, really interesting stuff to understand the full circle of that and how that is so integral to water and to life as we know it. I mean, that's where that richness comes from. It gets dry and desiccated when we take out the plants, which then destroy the rest of the cycle. Because
Oh,
without plants, you don't have humus in the soil.
trees, the, it's the transpiration of trees that cause rain.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why the forest piece is so important. It's not just trees, it's forest. There really is a difference. That's another kind of lesson. Because we will plant trees. But that doesn't necessarily give us the diversity that you need because that comes from the forest. All of those critters together create the ecosystem that supports itself.
What about prairie
That's an ecosystem too.
or
Um,
or savanna? I mean,
yeah, yeah. Um, the one of the attributes of healthy soil is that it's loose enough for the roots to go down deeply. So when that's there for a long period of time, it reinforces itself. I think it, and I'm guessing on this, I'm wondering if it's harder to initiate that. What we've seen in village homes is that that soil has deepened its ability to hold water. So the water holding has gone from 1 foot to 10 foot to 17 feet in 3 years.
Mhm.
And it's now been 50 years. So it's probably much deeper. So it takes time to do that. And that was a combination of the landscape design and the planting of trees and some grasses. But there were a lot of trees planted. They were mostly fruit trees, but there were a lot of trees planted. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to be known. Yeah, that we don't yet know. Yeah, biochar is the same way. They've been trying for decades to reproduce the black earth of the Amazon. The black earth of the Amazon, Terra Parida, has a life of its own. It truly multiplies. It grows like a foot a year, but they don't understand how to make it happen. And people have tried all sorts of experiments and all sorts of stuff, and they don't have the answer to that. They don't know what makes that what it is, how that was created and supported. They find trenches of it in various parts, and they're in blocks. It's like a big hole that holds that kind of dirt, and haven't been able to replicate it, but it's something that the ancient indigenous folks there did and consciously created. So we're still unraveling that. And biochar is part of it, but it's not the whole answer.
There certainly is enough to keep our human curiosities busy.
True enough. True enough. Yeah. 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 There's something about ash and biochar that seems to be necessary for soil. And speaking of prairie, that was one of the things that the American Indians did, was they burned the grass, and that helped to refurbish the soil. So that's, again, a practice that humans did to keep that going and to make it what it was and to keep it what it was. So
Sure.
it wasn't encroached on by trees.
Burning is regenerative
Yeah, done right, yes.
to connect to trees and stuff, forests and
Yeah, and biochar added to burned forest now can really speed the regeneration. So some places are actually doing that.
What is biochar? How's it made?
It's made by burning with reduced oxygen so that things aren't consumed, but there's a charcoal kind of substance that's left, and it's very porous. So that porosity will hold both water and nutrients. So they make it, then they charge it with compost tea or the water from vermiculture, something like that, and then put it back in the ground, and it nourishes the soil and returns the humus. It's also now being seen by some people as a way to decarbonize the air and to store carbon. So it's becoming a carbon sequestration process. But yeah, so people can earn money by sequestering carbon in that way, because we're paying people to do that in different ways. So that becomes one of the ways to do that.
we're an interesting.
Yeah, it is. If you're interested in biochar, I would really recommend Albert Bates's book. He did so much research on biochar and what we're doing with biochar and biochar kilns and all the different varieties. I mean, there's just such a wealth of information in that book. He's just amazing. I'm really hoping I can get him for my talk in June. We'll see. I've sent him an email, so I don't know if he'll respond or not. He's honored me a couple of times with his presence, so we'll see if he does it this time. I don't know. But yeah, he's quite a guy.
We're such an interesting species.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And we're in a maturation process, as all nature is.
We have such a curiosity about the world. I don't think anybody else has that kind of curiosity.
Well, right, just humans. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
It's
one,
a matter of depth of experience. I mean, my cat is very curious, but
Yeah.
it only goes so far, and she doesn't even walk very far away. So,
Well, and
she-
it may be a maturation issue that as you mature, you become less curious because you know more. I don't know.
Mm.
I'm looking at whales. I wouldn't call them a curious species by any means. It seems like they've resolved all their questions and
Yeah.
are at peace, you know? And we have all these questions still, so.
some of the great physicists, trying to come up with a name here. Anyway, turns out he's one of the most curious men that I have ever run across. I've seen videos of him talking about some distant tribe in the middle, the Tuvu tribe, way in the middle of Inner Mongolia. So, and the next minute he'll be talking about how a ping pong ball bounces. I mean,
nice.
Feinstein, no, Feynman.
I think I'd marry him.
he's absolutely like a child when he,
Yeah.
with his humor. And yet after the humor, after the little joke will be some bon mot of of intelligence that just knocks you over. Feynman, that's his name. One of the more interesting people that I've ever encountered, not live, I've never met him, but you know, in videos and interviews.
Yeah, I just think that curiosity, that's what pulls forward answers from the cosmos, you know. You kind of ask questions and the answer just arrives. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're probably more curious than cats.
But that is one of the characteristics of cats that we love, you know. Yeah, that we appreciate.
Well, Chloe slows down. I mean, she's 80 now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so we're told by the current, you know, the standard of comparing human to cat's ages.
Right.
She's 80 plus. And yeah, she slows down and she does a lot of just sitting and looking at things. You know, I can get behind that.
Yeah, me too. Yes. Yeah, Rouse is in his hundreds, so he's really slowed down a lot.
And who knows what they're thinking about? I mean, they may have come up with the theory of everything, but they don't know how to tell us.
Maybe that's part of old age, is getting to the point where you feel like you have the theory of everything. It's just, it is where it is, and it is what it is, and that's perfect. You don't need to know any more than that.
That's not my experience of aging. Yeah, I have the freedom to be curious more of the time. And I do spend a lot of time in contemplation about things that I don't have insight into. And I enjoy that time. I mean, it's time well spent, it seems. And then when, but I stimulate myself by realizing that I'm a cosmic being. We've originated from the cosmos, from galactic, the galactic sphere of things. That is our origin.
And water's everywhere.
Oh,
I said water's everywhere. We're finding water everywhere.
no,
Yeah.
not yeah, but I'm talking about cosmic. That's a different dimension than water. Maybe,
Is it?
kind of.
Well, there's a connection, and they're known as comets. Most comets are filled.
Ice.
They're carrying a lot of water,
Yep.
and which is leading not just some, but many the cosmologists to you know, posit that that's where the water on Earth came from, because of course at one point it was a molten blob of metals and, you know,
Stardust.
and other stuff, silicas, and somehow that water got deposited here. And of course, without it, we couldn't have life as we know it.
I like that we deep dive.
Well, you know, that thought has made me wonder if there are just particles you know, we've been thinking of space as empty. And then there's this, well, there's dark matter that we can't see, and there's plasma. We're starting to put stuff into that empty space. It's not just nothing anymore. So I wonder if there are fine particles of water everywhere, that could permeate everything. I mean, water is one of the few things we know that have three different ways of being that look like no relationship to each other, you know. And it can go from one form to another.
Well, that's only in our temperature range,
right.
because almost every element does have its own transition phase
Oh, okay.
pattern, but many of them occur at almost absolute zero,
Okay.
to come to the solid form and so forth. So yeah, but it's probably the most malleable. I mean, it is the most malleable compound at our temperature range.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. I was reading about the other day. One scientist has come up with the theory that, and it's being taken seriously, although there's serious opposition is being posted, but only because they've really looked at it carefully. But he said, after great study, he's theorizing that all electrons are not separate or individual. They actually are the same electron.
Yeah.
Are you saying there's one?
There's one electron, as I am, there's one I am, there's one electron, but it manifests, in different microseconds of time, all over the universe.
In different ways.
And that part has drawn a lot of criticism. But the second part is that electrons and anti-electrons, I mean, there are such a thing as a positron and an electron, which is negatively charged. The positron is positively charged. They're the opposite of each other. That this part of the theory posits that they're the same thing, except that one is going backwards in time and the other one is going forward in time. And that one actually has gotten some serious words, with in other scientists, that they're willing to accept that as a notion of how these were created and what they actually do because it was, well over, well, at least 100 years ago, maybe well over 100, chemists were talking about electrons dancing in and out of expressed reality. So where do they go? What do they be? I mean,
yeah.
who knows? And that kind of play, I mean, it's play in one sense. That's what's so wonderful about it. That kind of play is actually still going on, and it's quite prominent. Unfortunately, the way even the scientific system has become, it's evolved into something that's much more highly structured and dependent on, recognition, for success. That play is often behind closed doors. You can't come out with something too far out, because except at parties where you're drunk. Some of the best ideas, I mean, so to speak, but some of the best ideas, filter through in stories and anecdotes and and then theories which are maintained to be just purely fantasy, but let's take a look at this. Like the old guy stroking his beard. Well, this might just be very interesting. That still exists, and there's some amazing stuff that circulates. But we're beginning to see some concordance in that, based on the basis of our conversation, which is basically oneness throughout the universe, the cosmos. It actually has a lot of reflection in reality that we're beginning to discover or admit or whatever.
One of the truths that makes my sensual body so enlivened is that everything is the same thing. I love that. Everything is the same thing. It just has different functions and different parts and different characteristics, and but it's all the same thing.
Sometimes I feel like a hamburger. Other times I don't.
That's funny. I don't think I've ever had that experience.
I've been into turkey burgers lately. Instead of ham, I use turkey. Yes.
I hate to leave the frivolity, but it is after 1:30. I've got a friend coming at 2. I've got
Okay.
some things prepared.
Okay.
This has been a wonderful session. Sometimes it's just fun to play.
Yes, it is. It
Thank
is. It's been good.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending the time. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Hey,
Bye.
all right, bye. So
Bye-bye.
Catherine, are we gone too?
I think so. Yeah, I have to do stuff too.
All right, then.
I've got a hiccup I've got to fix. So,
Okay.
okay.
Luck with the hiccup.
Big hug.
Bye.